Okay, in the UK, stocks and the pound were driven lower on Thursday after the main opposition Labour Party launched its election manifesto featuring a promise to raise taxes on corporations and renationalize infrastructure groups. The markets are also attuned to the Eurozone economic data out today. Well, let's talk to Juliana. Hello, Juliana. Good afternoon. We saw the Eurozone economic data released today. But just wondering what the UK economy is making of that data.
Good afternoon, Chimazi. If you just permit me momentarily, I would like to thank Yemi Edun of Daniel Ford International, who took a very early phone call this morning to provide some analysis on Nigeria's GDP data. But as you said, we've got a mixed bag of numbers coming out of Europe and the UK today. We can see that the Eurozone is growing very, very slowly. We just spoke to Frankfurt, and yes, even though Germany have managed to stay out of a technical recession, their slow growth, particularly in employment and services, is very worrying. However, the UK have had their own set of data today. We have had, for the first time ever, they've released a flash PMI reading. Those PMI figures, which we usually talk about, Chimmy, at the end of the month, they've put them out early, and it shows that the services industry, which accounts for 80% of the UK's GDP, plus manufacturing, is on a decline. They had a combined reading of about 48.5, 50 being that threshold number that shows a difference between expansion and contraction. A lot of economists here in the UK believe that this detail, even though it is only 85% ready, would show that in Q4, Britain is expected to drop their economy by 0.02%. Of course, very similarly to Germany, Britain did just manage to steer clear of a recession in Q3, but Brexit uncertainty is really driving down on these economic figures here. So there'll be lots of number crunching going on with analysts as we speak, but the first time in a long time that market have released these flash PMI readings, just showing how worried they are about the upcoming election and this consistent Brexit uncertainty.
As an interesting one, well, the new ECB President, Christine Lagarde, in her first speech says the Eurozone needs to create more of its economic growth at home. Do investors in the UK really care about Madame Lagarde's speech in the face of the Brexit?
Absolutely, Chimazi. Everybody cares. I think, you change a central bank governor, it's big, big news across the world. Essentially, Christine Lagarde at the moment is the most powerful economist in Europe. Although Britain isn't in the Eurozone, what happens on the continent is just a stone's throw away. And usually, sentiment does seep through borders. She has been in the job for 3 weeks now. And obviously today was her first important speech. And I think analysts and, politicians in the UK will be listening particularly closely to what she says, because, of course, whoever wins that election on December the 12th will be negotiating and attempting to negotiate a good trade deal with Europe post-Brexit. So a healthy Europe could signal a healthy Britain. So, yes, a lot of people are watching, a lot of people are following every single word that she has to say down to a T.
All right, let's look at the numbers for today. How are the markets holding up a day after the main opposition Labour Party launched its election manifesto?
Well, of course, big business in the UK are putting their money on Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party to win the election. He's still way ahead in the polls. So even though Jeremy Corbyn's policy pledges yesterday seem to rack up an extra £83 billion worth of spending over the next 4 years, there doesn't seem to be anybody taking him too seriously at the moment, because they're still hopeful that he won't get into power. But the FTSE is doing pretty well at the moment. Let's look at those numbers specifically. The FTSE All-Share is up 0.89%. The FTSE 100 is up 1.03%, and the FTSE 250 is up 0.23% at intraday. The equities has really knocked down sterling, and particularly those flash PMI numbers. The British pound is down on the US dollar by 0.22%, also down on the euro by 0.18%, and down on the Japanese yen by 0.32%, Jimmy.
All right, Juliana, it's been a great week with you. So let's call it a day and say, thank God it's Friday. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thank you. You too.